Welcome back to Eliminate the Gap. This today we're going to have our first actual guest here, and we are looking so much forward to that experience here. It's been a little bit of time, but it's been great. And guys, I hope you guys are well. I know we've had a lot of coldness around the country here, so
Absolutely.
hopefully you are staying warm.
Well, in Delmar, he's a southern boy. He doesn't care for any of the snow or
Yeah.
ice. Um, Here where I am in Indianapolis, we've got about a foot of snow. Um, have not cared for that. Both Delmar and I are both sore from shoveling
Yes.
and doing those kinds of things. So, Del, it's been a moment since we released the initial podcast. What kind of feedback have you been receiving?
Hey, to this extent, I think that uh what we're getting back is people are liking it for this where we are right now and in our time period. And I think this is something that I believe is just going to continue to grow. And as I talk to more and more people, uh, as they go out and try to catch our different podcasts that we have here. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've heard from some folks that I haven't heard from in a while. So you never know who actually just kind of catches it and checks it out. I would say the sentiment, at least that we've heard, is that this is a needed outlet for folks to be able to tune in, get a sense of what's happening in youth development, um, and kind of just check out the latest. And so that's been pretty good. There's been no shortage of comments, um, some positive, some like Eric, you need a new background. So I got a new background. I changed places. Um, there's also been some suggestion for topics, and that's been pretty cool. And one that kind of stood out for me, and we'll have to kind of figure out how to do this, is we're in this kind of pandemic, right? And in pandemic, we might think about it in terms of uh, like health, and literally we're still in that. And then if you kind of make the word more broad to stretch this analogy, then you have everything that's happened and continues to happen around social justice. So that's in itself its own pandemic, if you will. And one of the suggestions I heard was, why don't you all take on the issue of how do people, particularly young people, get to the truth of information? Because there is so much misinformation out there. And they, in their words, they called that in itself the pandemic of misinformation. And so I thought that was interesting, and something, again, we certainly could consider or do in the future. I don't know what you think about some of those things.
Well, actually, I think that's actually a very good thing because truth, a lot of people have different truths, but the reality of truth is it's something that is true for all people at all times. And I don't think a lot of people understand that about truth. We have a lot of misinformation about what truth is. All right. What truth is today is what truth was yesterday. And some people are like, well, my truth is different from your truth. And that's not true about truth. That's just that defeats its purpose, right? So
I'm not sure
uh,
you could say that all again if you tried with all a little tongue twister.
so yeah, I think that's actually something that's great. And that's what we try to do, hopefully, as educators. I know I talk to kids all the time about doing the research behind things, like really going in depth and thinking about things. We do current events all the time. And I'm like, I don't want your father's current events where you tell me what you read. I want to know what you think, what you feel. How this is something that's going to happen uh, in your lifetime that you might have to solve and fix, like certain things like that. So really digging in, and that's the purpose of education, is to get people to really think and not just kind of regurgitate, and that's kind of what I think we've shifted into. But I think at the end of the day, education is really about learning.
No, I like that, and we'll find some ways. It's believe me, this topic's already, I'm sure, raised the ires of some viewers who are saying, "Oh gosh, we don't need another political." That's not our goal here. We just really want
Definitely.
ultimately. to help young people and people working with young people, help them critically think about the information they're taking in, and give it, some thought on its accuracy, if you will. So we'll see how that goes. So today's topic, pretty exciting in terms of the fact that it's extremely relevant to many of the folks watching, who are and have been, gosh, it's almost been a year. I just was checking my social media this morning, Del, and what popped up was a picture of us when I was in your neck of the woods a year ago. Like that just happened. And I was
I
thinking,
remember that.
pandemic came lockdown right after I was out there. So the folks that we'll be talking to today are our guest is going to be quite representative of what a lot of after school providers have been facing over the last year now.
Yeah, and I can't wait to speak to Miriam Umar of Freetown Village is going to be our guest here today. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with her and just see where things are on the after school plateau, as they say.
Excellent.
Can you tell us about Freetown Village and the kinds of things you did before COVID?
Well, Freetown Village is a living history museum, and we are dedicated to preserving the African American experience here in Indiana. We do that through living history performances, workshops, lectures, and seminars, and we have a youth outreach program. So, in a nutshell, that is Freetown Village. Before
Awesome.
COVID,
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
before
Great.
before COVID, we had a lot of in-person programming. We have the Freetown Village Singers, which is an a cappella ensemble that mixes storytelling and singing. We also have workshops that we did a lot at festivals and fairs. And our youth programming, we did a lot of in-school and out-of-school time performance programs and performances. That was before COVID. When COVID hit, that pretty much shut down all of our operations because we were all in person. We had not ventured into the world of virtual or online content at all. So there was a period of time where we were really in limbo of trying to figure out, okay, what do we do now? How do we take what has been in person and develop it into an online platform? So that was what 2020 was about for us.
Very challenging, I'm sure. I wanted to just dig a little deeper on Freetown. You had mentioned earlier that it's kind of rooted initially at 1870 and going on. Talk a little bit about kind of that timeline that you all try to share with the folks.
We chose the time period of 1870, which marks the beginning of Reconstruction here in America. And I think for a lot of people, the portrayal of African American history before 1900 was everyone was enslaved. And during the period of Reconstruction was a time of great growth and opportunity for African Americans. That was the establishment of a lot of communities, a lot of businesses, a lot of colleges and universities were established. So it was a very unique window in time before the redemption period in the 1880s, which is ushered in Jim Crow and all that. But it's a period in time that most people don't understand. And if we understand that, we can see the connections to where we are today.
Absolutely. Living history like that is pretty powerful.
Right.
One of the things that I know just from you and your work is the relationship you have with parents. You have multiple siblings attend your summer camps, for example, participate in your programs. During COVID, share with us a little bit what it's been like to communicate with parents and what they're thinking and feeling during this time.
Well, initially, so it would have been this time last year when COVID first hit, no one really understood. I don't think we realized the impact it was going to have. So we were hopeful that we would still have camp in some capacity. We thought initially, well, maybe we'll just, push it back a few weeks. or then maybe it was, okay, let's scale it down to a few days a week. So there was a lot of conversation about, well, what are we going to do? And we just were a listening ear to our parents. When the school, after spring break, when schools did not come back into session, that's when it became really real to us. And most of our camp staff, they are educators as well. So we put together kind of a hotline and a chat to provide resources to our parents that may have been in struggling situations. Some of the parents realized that the experiences that their children were having online wasn't a quality experience. So we were able to provide them with additional support resources and strategies, offline strategies, kind of the old school teaching to help supplement for families that did not have multiple computers or tablets for the children to be on at the same time. Providing them with, I said, the old school instructional methods was really helpful. And a lot of those strategies is what we use during our summer program. We are a low-tech campus because we realize there are a lot of soft skills, interpersonal skills that you just can't get on a computer, and you've got to be able to interact face-to-face with someone else. So did that answer your question? I kind of rambled there for a minute.
No, absolutely, it's great.
Yeah, so given that, this was the situation, and I know that I understand exactly where you're coming from when we first shut down. Like, really, we thought that we'd come back. This would be a quick thing. But now
Right.
that we're heading into looking at probably planning for your upcoming summer programs, how are you adapting your program at this point, thinking that hopefully, crossing our fingers, that we do get that?
Well, what we learned last summer, and I think some of the, well, let me phrase it this way. Some of the funders didn't quite understand the need for summer programming. For a lot of our families, it was not an elective. Um, there was a big push to create online content and craft kits for parents to pick up. But what parents needed was actual care. They needed some place for their children to be. A lot of our families we've been with, they have come to rely on, excuse me, rely on our camp as a safe place for their kids to be. Um, and we're on our second generation of kids now, so it's kind of like, wait, this is kind of weird. So even though we were able to provide online experiences for our kids and connect that way, it was nowhere near sufficient for what the demand was. Looking forward to this year, we're kind of planning on an Etch-a-Sketch. We've got the best case scenario where we get to open back up and provide daily experiences. And then we have kind of a middle ground where we might do a hybrid of partial days or maybe later in the summer. And then we have the worst case of, well, we'll just be virtual again. So hopefully, we will be able to offer an in-person to some degree. We know it won't be the same as camp was in 2019, because we do realize that there will still be the what do you call it, the cohort or pod assembly of students versus them all being able to intermingle. So we are hopeful that we will be able to have an in-person experience to some degree.
Yeah, and in Indiana, they're vaccinating strictly by age and whether or not you are have high risk. So teachers are not prioritized, for example, and I know your program relies a lot on teachers, and so that's really the kind of uncertainty right now about whether or not the summer programs will happen normally or not. So I get that. If you could think about maybe any silver lining that came through COVID this past year for your program, maybe, like, for example, you'd mentioned your low tech generally, but you've had to really beef that up. Maybe there's some added capacity that's happened there out of necessity. Any sort of anecdotes or anything silver lining you would take away from this past year?
Well, the silver lining is that it opened us up literally to a whole new world. This time last year, I don't even think I had a Zoom account.
I
So
didn't.
it forced us to think creatively. And two of the programs that we did last summer for our children, we had a story time with our kindergarten, first and second graders. And we had two of our teachers who were able to interact with our students, and we kept it closed to just our camp kids. Um, oh, yes. The initial plan was to do like a 20-minute session on Mondays and Wednesdays, twice a week. And it grew to an hour and a half because the kids wanted to talk.
Wow.
They were in isolation. Several of them were only children. So they just craved that opportunity to talk with their teacher, with their fellow campmates. So the teachers, one of them was retired, but she's old school with her instruction. She was able to keep the learning going even in their conversation. So that was a great opportunity for us. And we are hoping to do more of that this year, maybe like a Saturday session. So kind of a blended read along / gathering, if you will. Also, we did a culinary class. At camp,
Wow.
we did that in person, obviously. And the kids really enjoyed that because our methodology is you can tell kids to eat healthy or you can show them how to eat healthy. So we work with 2 local chefs who were able to develop a curriculum. Unfortunately, a lot of the curriculum in the state is geared towards high school kids. So I had to really get creative to find educators who were willing to work with children to teach them at their level. So we cobbled together an experience where we contacted the parents, gave them the list ahead of time with the recipe, set up a time for them to work with the chef online. So the chef did a virtual session. The parents got to be the sous chef to the child. So it was a great family learning experience. And the parents said that because they weren't doing their primary instruction, they were just doing the assist, it took the pressure off of them to teach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they
It's
enjoyed that. They really
yeah,
enjoyed it.
it's a nice break for the parents and something fun. Delmar and I have cooked together, and he could have used that class.
Yes, most definitely.
So that's something we're looking at for this summer. Even if we
Yeah,
are in person, we would still do a virtual cooking class.
that's awesome.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
I just and there've been just a number of things that I've heard from around the country of people that have, you know, through necessity, right? And whatever that old adage is, that you have to figure it out. There's not a choice.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we have some additional capacity. One of the things that I've heard from some folks is because of the virtual nature of some of their programming, they've been able to reach out to people that aren't in their community, other
Right.
experts, other folks that now all of a sudden become accessible and affordable because we're doing it this way. And so it's just been kind of a interesting, you know, evolution. It's just been interesting.
Right.
Del, what else do you have for Miriam before we wrap this up?
Well, yeah, while we're kind of building off of these success stories, I was wondering, Miriam, if you wouldn't mind sharing one of your success stories that you have there with Freetown Village, just beyond COVID. Just tell us about one of your most memorable success stories.
Ooh, that's kind of broad. I need you to narrow that down for me a little bit.
Well, you work with young people, and you know when you work with young people, as you said, you know you have over this COVID time, you've reached out to folks that just needed that social interaction. So things where you've either been able to connect with young people in a way that you weren't really expecting, or something that just went above and beyond in regards to the expression that you got from a young person.
Well, I think in a nutshell, what I really enjoy about our camp experience, the theme of the camp is it takes a village. And we work hard to empower each child to understand their role in the camp community and that they all have a work assignment, they all have a place, and they all have a purpose. One thing we noticed, this has been a few years back, we established a welcome committee for our campers. We have a high return rate of our camp kids, about 60% return each summer until they age out. And that we all know for new kids arriving, that can be an intimidating situation. So for each class, and we service kindergarten through eighth, we have welcome ambassadors. And their job is on the Monday of each week is to welcome the new kids and to help them feel connected. And by the end of that first day, the new kids feel like they are part of the team. So I really appreciate how the kids have owned up to this is their camp. And they understand that they have to do their part to make sure that it's a successful experience for everyone. So we have a very low incident rate of bullying or teasing or harassment of any kind because they understand we're family and we're all in this together. And that's one of the one of the comments I get from the parents every year is how safe they feel with their kids being in our program. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's perfect. And that's a nice uplifting place to at least end this moment together. So Miriam, Umar from Freetown Village, thank you very much for spending some time with us. And we wish you luck and fingers crossed that we all come out of this here soon and that you all can administer your programs and services, in person in the highest quality fashion. So thanks for the time.
All right. Thanks for the invitation.
You bet.
Take care.
So that was a pretty good discussion there. I certainly appreciated Miriam's candor.
Most definitely. Yeah, one of the things that kind of hit me, and as she was talking, and I know you kind of brought this conversation back around to the fact that they started in, I believe she said it was 1870 is kind of that starting point, and it kind of made me think back because I just recently, over the past couple of months, saw the movie Harriet, and just there were people of color that were living in the North, and really we don't know a lot about their story. We got snippets of that from that particular movie, but man, the story that she has to tell from Freetown, just about the North, really. We hear about the South all the time, how people use the Underground Railroad and just the conditions of slavery and things of that nature, but just really what was going on in the North during that same time period. It's really fascinating, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about that myself.
Absolutely. So one of the things here in Indianapolis during this time period is Madam C.J. Walker, and there was a short run miniseries on Netflix when COVID first started, detailing her life. And her life, a good part of it took place right here in Indianapolis, and it captures this time period that Miriam reminded us is at least in a lot of school districts not really taught. We go from slavery, a little bit of Reconstruction, and then to Martin Luther King, and there's a lot of things that happened in between there. And anyway, that's an interesting series, and there's lots of things. So kudos to what Freetown Village is doing. It's certainly a unique program, and they've really adapted, as many of us have. Those of you watching have been able to do during this time period. So as we like to do in each episode, we want to focus on a community program or a young person or something good that's happening in the field, or that just feel like we all should know about during these times. So much negative or difficult information. We want to certainly put a highlight on something good that's happening. So this episode, we're going to highlight David Washington, who's a youth entrepreneur, and we have a 3-minute video that will kind of celebrate him and how he's doing some amazing things.
I don't hear anything.
How about that? I mean, what an excellent kind of accident. I like to play in the kitchen a little bit, and I haven't come across something that I could turn around and bottle.
Hey, I know I enjoy food myself. I would love to try some of this. I actually went and tried to do a little research on it, and yeah, this stuff obviously must be selling pretty quickly and fast. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see this young man on the Shark Tank or something of that nature sometime soon.
That'd be awesome. Um, yeah, just
Yeah.
I'm glad that to have a chance to see that, and good luck to him.
Yes, most definitely. All right, so we're going to talk about our next episode where we'll have Troy Washington will come and we'll have a chance to talk about him. He's an administrator for a pretty large high school in the around the Northern Virginia area, and we're going to talk to him about how things are going in the regards of education and how they're dealing with the pandemic and just some of the things that they're trying to cope with, their problems. And as right now, we have a lot of folks, at least here in Virginia, we're looking to return to the classroom where everybody has the opportunity to at least be in the classroom across the state of Virginia. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about some of the challenges he's had and how they've overcome those challenges.
Absolutely, and just even the differences among states. I think it's like 34 states that are not prioritizing teachers as essential workers to get vaccinated. A lot of states are doing it by age, and as a result, you have a lot of teachers, rightly so, that are very concerned about returning to school full time. My understanding is Virginia, where Troy is vaccinating teachers, so that's a good thing. It'd be interesting just to hear kind of his reflections, like we heard from Miriam, right? From all of a sudden,
Yeah,
this thing's going to be with us for a while to now maybe things are going to get a little brighter, and what does that mean? And how do you deal with the emotional aspect of young people being isolated?
Yes,
All right.
most
Well, we
definitely,
look forward
most
to seeing
definitely.
you all the next time on Eliminating the Gap.